Hello, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of AWS Repost Live. My name is Dalian AgentCore. You might not have seen me here on this episode, this show before. The new host is filling in for this week, and I'm joined by a few of my colleagues here. But before we get to that, we'll handle a couple things. If you haven't joined Repost Live, welcome. Welcome for tuning in this week. If you're a repeat visitor here, we're glad to have you back. And hope you got your repost account set up and ready to go. We'd love to get questions from you as well as questions live. So feel free to post your comments, questions. We'd love to interact with our viewers. So with that being said, I'd love to introduce our two guests for today. We're joined by Adam and Eddie, and I'll allow Adam to start us off with some introductions.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Adam Hindman, a senior technical account manager. I'm actually based out of Oregon, so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And how about you, Eddie?
Hey everyone, my name is Eddie Yao. I'm a principal technical account manager based in San Francisco Bay Area.
Glad to have you both on this week's episode. And I didn't mention it, but I'm based out of Ohio, Northwest Ohio, near Toledo. And we'd love to hear about where you're tuning in from. So go ahead and post where you're tuning in from for this week's episode. Love to see, we get a lot of different people from all around the world. So love to see where our viewers are tuning in from. And with that being said, today's topic, we'll be talking about advanced strategies for Amazon Bedrock. We're joined with Eddie and Adam, who are return guests here. So love to see folks that have come on and, glad to know that we had given them such a good experience that they wanted to come back to the show and present again. So if you missed it, Eddie was actually recently on our July 1st episode talking about some of the best practices around Amazon Bedrock agents. And we kind of had some questions come out of that episode that we wanted to retouch on and ensure that, we answer those questions for our guests. So Eddie, do you want to kind of get us started here on that topic?
Yeah, I remember. Thank you, Darian. I remember from the last episode, there was a audience questions about how to choose between the different types of agents, right? Now that especially we have the recent launch from AWS New York Summit, there is so many different choices for customers to choose from. Right. The first one is the specialized agent, like for things like, if you are a developer, and then if you're looking for some agentic IDE experience, you may want to choose Hero, which is something that I'm going to demo in just a little bit. Things like that. There's a specialized agent. So it's kind of like depends on use case, kind of narrow it down from build versus buy, right? And then the second one is how much time and what kind of technical resource does your team have, right? So of course, if you are looking to just leverage some of the specialized agent, such as Hero or Amazon Q Developer, you can be easily onboarded as soon as get your user permission into the account, right? So the time to market is much faster for a specialized agent versus kind of like Bill. And then for Bill, we are looking for if you have a technical resources in the team to actually do the development work. Although, AWS offered recently that we launched the Strengths Agents SDK, to help you easily to build AI agents just using a few lines of code. And then also has the Bedrock AgentCore, where you can deploy and run your agents in production with enterprise level scale and security. So all of these things that I just talked about, I'm going to show you quickly in a demo in a little bit. But that's kind of like the second factor. So just to recap, the first one is what kind of use case that you have, whether it's something that we already offer as a product, build versus buy. The second one is how much time you're looking to go to production and how much technical resource in your team. And then I'll say the last one, it's mostly how much control and how much visibility that your team would need into building the AI agent or Gen AI application, right? So we know that for some of the services like Bedrock AgentCore, it offers like fully managed set of service to help you deploy and run your AI agents. But if your team has that technical dev to go into the different underlying components to do the fine tuning, and then maybe your team is already familiar with some of the open source frameworks like LangChain and LangSmith, LangGraph, things like that. You can choose open source framework. So now we open source framework, Strengths Agent SDK, and also the Bedrock AgentCore would help you able to integrate those into your Gen AI applications and deploy it to your production as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of topics in terms of agents, and especially coming out of New York Summit, a lot of announcements around that. Adam, I don't know, have you seen some of the different agents? And I know there's even some in the marketplace that they can use. So particular to Eddie, as you talked about, versus build versus buy, have you seen any particular like use cases, or what would be a good guidance for people to look at that beyond technical on the team? Does it make sense if I'm connecting with a certain software to just buy an agent versus go ahead and build it?
Yeah, so I mean that's a great question. I have seen a few different customers leverage both sides of it. Some will actually have the technical aptitude to be able to go and be able to deploy and build something on their own. The others are really trying to, I need to get a proof of concept up and running. So they need to get something out of the box and then they build and adapt from there. But a lot of times, a lot of organizations need to be able to get the proof of concept in order to get the approval to continue with that project. So it is very mixed based upon the organization, and the best of it all is that these are continuing to grow. There's more and more adaptations. There's more and more integrations that are coming out. So do keep in mind is that even if you don't have the team or the ability to really kind of build something out in a really complex structure, there could be something that's off the shelf. You can be able to plug that into your environment and test it out and get more buy-in. Maybe there's additional team members that would be game to be able to do more with it. So there's plenty of options and flexibility with the open source and also the marketplace options.
Appreciate the perspective. With that being said, Eddie, you set us up for a demo you got here.
Yep. If I can share my screen here. Just to recap quickly, this is the diagram from our recent AWS blog post from the VP of Agentic AI, Swami, and happy to drop the link here. But basically, you can see how the different components fit into this overarching Agentic AI ecosystem, right, to help you build, deploy, and also run your agentic AI applications. Some of the things that we talked about is at the top layer is the key role and Amazon Q, right? And then at the manage infrastructure for you to deploy your agent or build your agent, we have the Strengths Agent SDK and then the AgentCore. And then at the bottom layer, if you're looking to like train or fine tune your foundation models, you can leverage some of the GPUs or SageMaker AI. So just a quick recap for this diagram. And then let me switch to the Kiro IDE. If you can see the...
Yep. We see the hosting strands with Amazon Bedrock models.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm going to drop the link for this repository as well so that you can try it out. But basically, it's a public repository available on GitHub that's developed by AWS specialists and the service team that is launching the Bedrock AgentCore. Right, so this specific Python notebook, you can see how you can run Strengths Agent SDK, leveraging Strengths Agent SDK to build your agent, and then leveraging the Bedrock AgentCore runtime to deploy and run your agent. So I'm gonna, and right now I'm doing it in Kiro, so you can see all these 3 components at once. As you can see here, the architecture is pretty straightforward, right? The goal that we're trying to do is to basically create simple tools into this agent that we're going to create using Strands Agent SDK. And then we're going to simply using the default invocation, which is leveraging the Bedrock model. Let me try to see if I can. All right, perfect. Just keep in mind, I'll just go, given the time that we have, well, I'll just go it like super fast, lightning fast. But if you are interested to go through all the notebooks yourself, definitely recommend you to do that off the show. But pay attention to all the prerequisites that's required to run it on your local environment. And then you can see that to use the Strands Agents SDK, you can simply create a Python decorator, just calling like add tool to add your custom tool to your agent. So as simple as that, you see that it's importing the tool from the Strands SDK, and then initiating, the standardized Bedrock model. For me, I'm using the Claude Sonnet 4. You can, choose any of the Bedrock model available in Bedrock. And then you can also, like with Strands Agent SDK, the good thing is you can choose any sort of model, like including other models that's not available in Bedrock. So that's the benefit. And then you can see that to create a simple agent and create a custom tool, it's as simple as this one. And then for the Bedrock model, it's also just calling the Strands Agents model SDK. So I will just go through some of it very quickly. The notebook walks you through how to test your agent locally before you deploy it using the AgentCore, right? So AgentCore is the easy way for you to deploy and run your agents in AWS. And I believe you can run it outside AWS as well.
That's correct.
Yeah. So for this notebook, right, after you create your AI agent using the Strands Agent SDK, you can initiate a runtime. And then specifically, this one is using another open source starter kit toolkit from the AgentCore repository, where it helps you get started to deploy your agent very quickly. And then as you can see here, as a kind of like one line of code to initiate the runtime and then to configure your AgentCore runtime, putting in some of the specific tools and the code for your agent into this configuration. And then the Bedrock AgentCore would be able to configure this, this runtime for you. And then as simple as calling the SDK for AgentCore runtime.launch, you can simply calling this one line to launch the locally configured Docker image into a Amazon ECR repository. And then it will be hosted into a Amazon fully managed serverless environment to run your agent on to the cloud. So I'll skip through some of this, and then once the agent is deployed, you can see that you will simply, from a user perspective, you can use the starter kit to call or you can use the SDK to call the invoke function to invoke that specific AgentCore runtime, and then we'll get a response back. Here, I have an example to show you how you can use the Boto 3 Python SDK to call that same AgentCore runtime as well. So as simple as initiating an AgentCore client and then calling the invoke agent runtime. And then once you run it, you should be able to get the response back from the AgentCore runtime using the Bedrock model.
Eddie, definitely great stuff that you're showing here. I'm curious in terms of how AgentCore has changed your experience from, even from the evolution of agents through like Amazon Bedrock agents. How has AgentCore kind of changed the strategy and how you've been implementing this?
Yeah, that's a great question, Darian. So also know that we also offer Bedrock agents as a managed agents service as well. It's not going away. But with the currently a preview launch for AgentCore, good thing is everyone should try it because it's during the preview, it's it's not incurring any charge. And then the other thing you mentioned about the additional feature with AgentCore, right? It's really a comprehensive set of services, I believe like 7 services to help you deploy and run your agentic applications at scale with security, right? So for example, this is just one component that I'm demoing, it's the runtime. But we also have, for example, like gateway for you to connect with different like MCP servers, discover tools. If you want to connect with your enterprise level API, we also have like specific service to manage your like short-term and long-term memory for your agents. Things like that. There is a whole set of service for you to leverage. And the good thing is, you can pick and choose like which component, which service makes sense for your use case, for your applications. And then, you don't have to like go in, to have to use all of them at once. Like, for example, in this demo, I can simply develop my agent using the Strengths Agent SDK and just leverage the, AgentCore runtime to deploy it into a serverless environment in AWS. As simple as that, and then I can just use the individual components.
Awesome. Is there before we move on to the next part, is there anything else you want to leave our viewers with in terms of AgentCore and the demo that you're presenting?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly show the Kiro, one of the big features for Kiro Agentic IDE as well, right? It's a basically one big takeaway for you if you want to understand Kiro. It's basically a spec-driven agentic IDE, right? So it's kind of like working backwards from your requirement document, where you can see on the left side, these are from some of the examples that I have created before. You would define those specific requirements, or you can ask Kiros to generate those requirement documents for you. And then, once you define kind of like a technical user story for your feature, for your, application, Kiro would be able to leverage the agentic capability to create those technical design document, which is this one that you see here. And then it's kind of like a 3-step process, right? In here, you can see that I'm asking Kiros to basically just make a copy of this notebook that I have and then add a new tool, right? So before we just had this simple weather tool and calculator tool. And then now I'm asking it to simply just add a browser tool for my agent to, use the web browser as a tool. And then you'll be able to see how amazing the Kiro is able to generate the diagram, generate the technical design document, how it integrates with the API and things like that. And then the last step is the task, right? So where after it has generated the technical design, Kiro would generate the specific implementation task to actually writing the code for your feature, for your application, down to unit testing, implementation, functional integration testing, and things like that.
So you're saying this document and the previous diagram, you're saying that was all created by Kiro.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome.
So like, for example, I'll just quickly, we don't have to wait until all the things are generated. But if I wanted to ask Kiro to say, I have this existing notebook that I just demo, right? The AgentCore runtime with the Strands Agent SDK. I'm simply asking Kiro to make a copy of that and then add a new tool from the Strands Agent existing built-in tool that we can leverage as developer. And then, this is a diagram tool where it will draw kind of specific AWS diagram. And then if I ask Kiro to do that, it will be able to generate that specific specs document for you. And then from there, I can also review the specs that's generated and then modified it as well.
Awesome. And I wanted to highlight a quick comment from one of our frequent viewers, JibJab06, and he's saying how he's still on the wait list for Kiro. So yeah, if you haven't jumped on the bandwagon yet, go ahead and put your name on the list. It's obviously it's so popular that we had to make a wait list for it. So go ahead and get on the list, wait for your access. Hopefully, I imagine it'll be coming soon as we look to expand the access of these tools and capabilities. So make sure you're on that list, and love to hear about what you're using Kiro for in your development cycles. Awesome. Well, Eddie, thank you so much for highlighting, Strands as well as Kiro and some of the capabilities it has there. Definitely looking forward to seeing how that improves our cycles and development as we continue on that path. With that being said, we're going to transition slightly to our next topic here. As you know, here at Repost Live, we love to engage with our community, the questions and articles that you're posting on Repost. Please keep those coming. That's definitely how we get content for these shows, and want to make sure we're highlighting, our frequent community participators. So we'll transition over to our first article that we'll be discussing today, and this one's from Harish Mandhati. Hopefully, I'm saying that name correctly. Harish, if you're tuned in, let me know if I'm getting that correct. But we're talking a little bit about building enterprise-grade generative AI applications, the complete production readiness guide. So obviously, that's quite the title, and 14-minute read, and it's content level advanced. So don't worry, we won't bore you by going through this whole list. But we do want to highlight some of the main takeaways. I know, Adam, you've been taking a look at this and kind of got some insights from the article. Would love to hear your perspective and what that means to, move to production readiness in the generative AI space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is a really good focus, and something that a lot of people are starting to evaluate is, how do I get my enterprise grade application set in order to be productive and to have the least amount of problems and issues that can come up. And a lot of it really kind of fluctuates between a lot of the simple components within this article is capacity planning. And there's a lot of evaluations that people are trying to do to make sure that they have everything kind of all set up. One of them is basically going to be like the input output modalities. Like, what type of chat system are you going to be able to put in place? Is it going to be just a straight text, or is it going to be text to image? Maybe you need to do some marketing and you need to have some images available to be able to display. It could be so many different structures that you have, but you need to take that into consideration. The other part is basically the TPM and RPM. So the tokens per minute, and you also have the request per minute. So token is basically like how many texts are coming into the conversation. So you can basically say like how many words that are within a book, like how many words are within an article, is going to be kind of being put into the LLM. Then you have basically your request per minute, which is like basically the individual questions and the tasks that are also being evaluated. So you have to kind of have this ebb and flow between what is going to be used for and how you're going to be doing it. So then you also have basically a steady state and also a peak state. A steady state could be like when you have customers in a store, and you're going to be having your regular flow of customers. You maybe staff your store in order to be able to handle that. And then on the peak side, you're going to be trying to staff accordingly when you have a peak event, or maybe there's a very busy sale that you're going to have. So basically, with the RPM and the TPM, it's really basically just evaluating how much information you're going to be giving on the normal per text or per question, and then also how many questions are you going to be invoking. So there's a lot of things that you want to take into consideration in this. And this article does a really good job at kind of breaking it down, be able to help you kind of plan and understand what are the things that I should be looking at to help you reduce risk around the corner and also just improve your workflow overall. So I would be very interested, like how many people actually do consider that or do have a run book or a game plan in play when they're trying to do these sorts of things.
And that's a great one, right? And that's I think one of the big benefits of the cloud, right, is having that economies of scale. How do we scale up? How do we ensure that we're ready for production, ready for full workload readiness? And once we put it live, who knows how much traffic are we gonna be able to handle all those requests from our customers? Awesome. Thanks for giving us some details in terms of how to prepare and ensure that we have capacity for that. Beyond that, want to kind of open it up to Eddie or Adam once again in terms of what else are you seeing, customers as they look to maybe move from a POC to a production ready AI application, generative AI application. What are some of the other things they should consider, look at? I'm sure there's some other things that they should be focusing on. Eddie, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think other than capacity, the other thing is also being able to kind of have the observability for your Gen AI application, especially with agentic AI application, right? So with agents, because they're leveraging the LLM to make the choice to, to think, to reason, to plan, and execute the actions, you want to have that visibility in terms of what are the tracing for the agents that take specific route or actions. So I'll say observability, it's a big one.
Definitely want to ensure that you have some observability. What are your users asking? What are the users patterns? Are they using it for the intended purposes? All those things are going to be important as you move to production. One other thing I wanted to touch on is security, right? As we all
I was
know.
just gonna say
Oh,
that actually.
I stole it from you. I saw you prepping up for it, Adam. But
Yep.
security's priority one here at AWS. So definitely ensuring that when we move to production, that we have security governance in place to ensure that the users that we're opening these applications up to are only able to get the data that they're intended to have access to. If you're looking at a medical provider, if you have an AI application that's giving medical diagnoses for other patients, that's probably not the intended use of that. So ensuring that you have good security governance controls around your AI applications as you move to production is critical and always the top priority. Adam, do you have anything in terms of how they can manage that, or any additional topics on that?
I'll just add the guardrails is a big component, but and also observability is another applicable. The really, I think, a pillar that needs to be evaluated within building your application. The other part is basically just the auditing that can come with it. So if you're in a regulatory industry that is or an industry that's highly regularized, you're going to be needing to do some audits and you need to be able to explain what you did and why. So those things are very, very important as well. I would add also just cost, being able to monitor and observe the costs that are associated with it. If you have something really running up the bill and you want to know why, if you have the proper guardrails and you also have the proper monitoring in place, that really helps get down to the crux of the issue.
Hey, great one. And We'll put a pin in that a little bit for later. We might have some tips in terms of how you can ensure and regulate cost a little better depending on your use cases. But if you're just tuning in here, welcome to a Repost Live. Once again, this is where the companion show to AWS Repost. So if you haven't tuned in there, don't have an account, what are you waiting for? Get in there today, set up an account, ask questions, read the articles, and we'd love to have you part of the community. So yeah, and if you're also just tuning in, feel free to ask questions here in the chat. We're joined here by Eddie, Adam, and myself. We're happy to address any questions you might have as it's relevant to the topics that we have. So yeah, with that being said, we'll continue on here. And one of the common things that I've seen be an issue in regards to maybe as you're looking, especially some of the higher end models, right? I know Eddie, in your presentation, you're highlighting Claude 4, which is a great model, and if you're able to use it, definitely recommend seeing the capabilities. It's one of those definitely on the larger end of things, but definitely has a lot of capabilities, a lot of power behind it. And if you've been experiencing it, you might have been trying to use it here in Amazon Q Developer. But as we're seeing from our community, one of the questions we're seeing is help around how to, they're seeing unavailability between Claude 4, 3.7, and getting some frequent interruptions, maybe due to capacity or things like that. So this question's coming in from MyZ. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct. And yeah, we kind of just wanted to highlight and see, Adam or Eddie, if you had any particular tips for MyZ here in terms of our other viewers who may be experiencing some of this potential throttling or interruptions.
Sure. Yeah. So essentially, I can share my screen on this one, but I would definitely recommend to take a look at your account's service quotas. From here, within the dashboard, you can go to services and type in like basically Bedrock. And initially, you're going to like every account is going to be slightly different. Also, the age of the account, and there's some limitations. So I definitely recommend to look at the documentation. But you can also search by invocations, and then the processes, you're going to be able to see where your limits are at. And with that being said, is like if they're having some of these invocation issues and they're basically getting throttled or there's limits, I have over here is essentially a within CloudWatch, there is a dashboard that you can be able to look at. And when you go into the dashboard, you have automatic dashboards that are available to you. So you can check out Bedrock. Bedrock is already going to have some processes or some highlighted metrics in place. So one of them is invocation account, or account latency, and a few other components that I would say is pretty critical to understand where and how many invocations and requests that you're actually putting through. So when you're doing that proof of concept and you're putting everything together, this is a great area to look at. But specifically, kind of also to that post, and also that I'm highlighting here is I just did some testing and I was getting throttles. I was getting throttles because when I go and look at my quota limits, I'm pretty low on a lot of, like, if I go and look at invocations, I have some pretty low requests and I have some pretty low throttles that I'm going to be hitting. So it is at that point you would want to go and do a request or a service limit increase. And there's a handful of things that you're going to definitely want to make sure that you have in place when you do that. So you need to understand your TPM, your RPM, and do those calculations. Understand where and how you're going to need to increase those service limits, because when you do that limit increase to the service, basically the concierge team, you're going to have basically input modalities. You're going to need to have the output modalities and steady state, peak state, TPM, RPM. You're going to need to have a lot of that information ready. So when you present that in the ticket to the concierge team, they're going to also then ask, like, what are the average input tokens per request? And that can be something that's like, what's the length of the average question that's going to be in a Q&A session, or basically the average input or output tokens, and that's the response. So basically you want to keep these things into consideration when you're doing these requests and you're putting everything in front, or when you're trying to do your proof of concept and you're going to be blocked by any sort of limits and rate limiting.
Great tips there. And I think that's a great opportunity to kind of highlight our roles as a technical account manager as well. So if you have the privilege of being on enterprise support and being at a company that has a technical account manager assigned to you, we're here to help with that. So if you're unfamiliar with how to understand, take a look at the throttling, what may be happening here, and to advocate to get you those increased limits with some of those higher end models, definitely reach out to your account team or particularly your TAM, and we're happy to assist in elevating and getting you the capacity you need for your use case. So if you don't know the RPM TPM, we'll help you figure that out and get you something that makes sense and get that limit increased for you. If you don't have a technical account manager, don't worry. You're not out of luck entirely, but you might just have to do a little more self-service and make sure you're taking some of these links home with you and submitting those requests on your behalf. Obviously, with these high-end models, definitely a lot of demand as they get better and smarter and faster. So we definitely are increasing capacity to ensure that our customers we can meet the demands of our customers. So just bear with us as we continue to increase those capacities and just check back every week. We're increasing that and giving it back to our customers. Similarly with Kiro, we don't want to leave you hanging, but just to make sure that everything's working properly, we do have to have something in place there.
Yeah. And I would add to that is that like when you do a lot of these evaluations on the LLMs, you can do performance testing, and we'll put a link in the chat. Evaluate like which models are going to be best for you, because you have basically performance that you need to evaluate whether or not you need to go up in an LLM to a small language model. But then the other component is that you also have burn down rates. Some of the burn down rates are also different based upon the model. So if you have Claude 3.7 and 4, there's going to be more things that you have to consider. And you want to be able to make sure that you have everything set up. And as you were kind of talking about reaching out to the TAM, if you need to do a little bit more self-service, you can open a support case ticket, a technical ticket to the Bedrock team, and then they can look at the metrics of your organization to be able to help provide a lot of those findings as well. So you do have support, you do have other things to consider. So just kind of make sure that you do the capacity planning, you look at the repost information, and you can always post a question on repost, and maybe we'll even throw this on there.
Absolutely. I love that tee up. Yeah. Use repost. That's what keeps this show going.
Yeah.
We'd love to get to the questions, the articles. Love seeing how the community is using our services, AWS services to build. We love to see what our builders can get out there. Never amazes me what we can put together here.
Another point I wanted to add to that, in terms of the limit increase or the quota increase, is to measuring the peak state of your production traffic, right? So we talk about there's a difference between the steady state and also the peak state. When you are requesting quota increase, it's important to measure your peak state, because you want to understand what is the maximum traffic pattern that your application require to have that quota increase to. And then for the steady state, it's good to use that to kind of like measure the cost performance of your application, right? Because with the steady state, either you can use it for like cost optimization, or you can understand the steady state traffic, and then we can leverage that to identify if there's any cost optimization opportunities.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think that kind of leads into one of our questions from our viewers here. And it kind of talks about, we have Jib Jab once again asking any advice on when to use an LLM or SLM. Just wondering if there's an established benchmark or if it's trial and error. And I guess before I push that question over to our guests, just so you know, large LLM stands for large language model. So as you can tell, it's a lot of parameters, a lot of data behind that. and an SLM is a small language model. Still a lot of parameters and such, but comparatively to the LLM, smaller, usually more cost efficient, and maybe the capabilities may be less so, but a lot of the times when you're using these generative AI applications, they don't require the robustness of, let's say, a Claude 4, right? You could get away with a much smaller, specialized model. So JibJab, thanks for the question. And yeah, do either of you have any details on that in terms of how to consider what's maybe optimized? I actually just pulled up an article here that kind of talks about the optimal size. How do you optimize the size of your large language model to optimize effectiveness and cost? And this is coming in from L. Junkai, one of our AWS folks here, and kind of has an article to go over these features. But love to hear from Adam and Eddie on this. Do you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, when you're considering a large language model, for one, there could be cost implications to us, and then also latency and speed. There are definitely some benefits when when you leverage a large language model. It already has great context, a great association to what you're looking to do in just a general text conversation, maybe some outputs that you're looking to get. But when you're trying to be more strategic on a lot of these applications that you're attempting to build, you may not need to leverage a large language model for every aspect of it. You can use like maybe a small language model and maybe some of the Nova models within AWS. There's others that are out there from other third-party vendors. Like you can also look at Hugging Face. But essentially, when you do some of the small ones, you can then do fine tuning, and you can also do a lot more performance testing and evaluations on them, and fine tune the parameters and basically improve its accuracy for that use case. And then on top of it, you also have RAG implementations. You can do knowledge bases. You can do all these other things that supplement that knowledge, that gap that the large language models tend to kind of fill in a way, with more specifics on that. And there's also a good balance between both of an SLM and also LLM.
Hmm. Any takes from you on that?
Yeah, I would say always start with the use case, right? So like Adam mentioned, LLM is not always the best choice. And then I'll also mention another technique, which is the model distillation, right? It's kind of like you taking a large language model and then you're trying to fine tune a smaller size model using kind of like a teacher student model kind of approach to so that you can have those some of the specific knowledge or performance factors from the large language model and then transferred it into the SLM. So that you can, leverage the SLM to have a faster performance in your application, and also hopefully lower cost for you as well to run the inference.
Hmm. I like that. And this one's an interesting question. I'm curious your perspective here. JibJab's following up with the SLMs. So he's asking, can I use a handful of SLMs, so small language models, fine tune them, have them speak to each other to build a network of language models that operate quickly and cheaply, but have access to a huge repository like an LLM? So essentially, he's asking, is it almost beneficial to have multiple small, maybe specialized models and use them in your own LLM format? What are your thoughts on that? I've actually never thought about that in depth. Adam, Eddie, any takes on that?
And I would circle back to what Eddie said on that one. Is it depends on the use case. And for this, there's no real cookie cutter, but there's frameworks that you could be able to build on. So leveraging a lot of small language models can be very beneficial for you if you have the right use case. And basically, this is a part of your whole proof of concept and testing. you can do those performance test metrics, and in order to really make sure that your small language model is, for one, accurate, it's not hallucinating, and you're also reaching the financial goal, and you're meeting the internal metrics that you have set forth. So I would, if it was me, I would probably start out with a small language model for a few of the basic scenarios and within agents, and then use a large language model as kind of like its, I don't want to say the brains of the operation, but the brains of the operation. And you can connect them together to do a collaboration, and then it can validate itself off of each other. So there are different combinations that you can be able to put them on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Using LLM as the judge can be one thing to evaluate the model with each other. I'll also just add one point to it. I think this kind of architecture would make sense if the smaller specific SLMs are handling like maybe more simpler or more straightforward tasks that it's fine-tuned about. And maybe you have a kind of like a supervisor model, like supervisor and worker model. When we think about this kind of agentic agent-to-agent, multi-agent collaboration, one architectural approach is you have a supervisor agent, and then underneath that there is like a suite of worker agents to collaborate with each other and then kind of send information to supervisor. So that could be one architectural approach as well in terms of agent.
Yeah, it's the multi-agent collaboration.
Exactly. I definitely
Yep.
seen it more in terms of how Jib Jab worded it, but in terms of more of agents, I've seen more agents like that, right? You have one like a leader agent, and then follower agents that do individual tasks, and right, they kind of work together to ensure that they're able to complete and ensure that the workflow is working as expected, right? Because ultimately we're setting these up to get a job done, a particular task, maybe multiple tasks done, depending on your setup. We just want to ensure that we're handling that and doing that properly. And I think that's one of the beauties of even some of the different, especially the recent announcements around AgentCore and how you can handle that, is the ability to test these out is extremely easy to set up, get things going, trial and error, see what works best for you. So particularly definitely test out different models, different configurations to ensure that you're meeting the needs of your business or your application. So, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also try out the Strengths Agents SDK if you are building agents using the Strengths Agent SDK, especially this latest V1 version. It supports the multi-agent collaboration and agent-to-agent protocol. So if you're looking to do something that's more, multi-agent collaboration type of architecture, definitely take a look at that.
Love it. And yeah, before we wrap up today, we kind of talked about some of the different customizations as we got near the end of the show. In terms of, I know you mentioned some fine tuning. I think Eddie, I heard you say something about distillation. So I did just want to call out this other recent announcement in regards to Nova customization in SageMaker AI. So definitely some kind of goes in that realm of how do we customize, how do we fine tune these models to ensure that they're meeting our use cases. I believe you both have had some time to take a look at this article, or at least seen the announcement. What are your thoughts on Amazon Nova customization and how that pertains to the space?
Yeah, I can share this link here, and I can, if you look at this page here, there is a diagram for kind of different options for you to pick and choose how you want to do the different fine tuning or even kind of continuous pre-training for Nova models. I think the Amazon Nova model as a first-party model for from Amazon, it offers the cost benefits of the doing the inference or using, for example, Bedrock. And then this kind of a graph shows you very clearly to help you
Can you zoom in
kind
a
of
bit on that,
choose.
Eddie?
Yeah. Let me,
I want to make sure I can see this graph. Oh, maybe it's not going
hang
to work. Or maybe can you exit out of the side? There you go. That's better. Thank you.
Yeah. So as you can see here, there are different options from model distillation all the way, like you can do continuous pre-training. And then there's option for you to do those fine-tuning or training on SageMaker AI, and then using the custom model import and import those fine-tuned model into Bedrock to do the inference as well. So say if you have a data science team that you want to fine-tune it on SageMaker AI, and then you have application development team, you want to call the API from Bedrock, then you can fine-tune the model in SageMaker AI, and then using the custom model import, and then do the inference in Bedrock.
I love this this graph to kind of give you an idea of the different. Obviously, there's a lot of different branches here that you can take, and as we discussed, it definitely depends on your use case in terms of what makes sense to go down, which path you should go down. But don't worry, if you have questions on this, go to repost. We're happy to address this, take a look, as well as assist in terms of how you can elevate this experience. And who knows, you might just be featured on the next episode of Repost Live. Excellent. Thanks for sharing that off. Hey, we definitely covered a lot on today's episode. Wanted to thank you both for walking through some of the repost questions and articles with me as it pertained to Bedrock and even Kiro and AgentCore. So we covered a lot of different topics, and just wanted to thank you both for taking time. So with that being said, I did also want to mention a couple housekeeping things here before we close out this week's episode. Make sure you're checking out. First off, I'm going to say it again. If you're not signed up for Repost, make sure you're signed up. Sign up with your AWS account ID, your builder ID. Get started and start expanding your cloud knowledge. In addition to Repost, while you're on the interweb, also take a look at some of the free trainings and such we have available on Skill Builder. Also something worth signing up for. A lot of different hands-on experiences. If you've ever been to a summit, you might have seen some of the different fun and gamified ways that we're enabling Skill Builder to have, and to get you upskilled in some of these emerging technologies. One other thing I wanted to mention is make sure you're tuning in to next week's episode as well. As always, we'll be here at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And to give you a little bit of a preview for next week's episode, I'm sure it's going to be a great one as well, as we'll be discussing Amazon Q in the command line and MCP servers. So if you're looking to do some of this agent collaboration and streamline your agents, MCP would probably be a topic you're going to want to tune into. So definitely hope to see you there. And until next time, you know where to find us. Hopefully you can tune in. And Adam, Eddie, anything else for our viewers before we close out this week's episode of Repost Live?
Go build. Have fun.
Go build, have fun, work hard, make history,
Yeah, try out Strands Agent, SDK, and the Bedrock AgentCore.
Kiro when you can.
Yeah, Kiro when you can, AgentCore, get hands-on experience. I would love to hear about how you're building on that, and can't wait to see your questions on Repost Live. So until next time, folks, it was a pleasure being on this week's episode, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.